Welcome to the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival Filmmaker panel. I think this is two of two maybe that we're having during the festival. My name is Mallory Martin. I'm the former artistic director at the Cleveland International Film Festival, and I'm now doing freelance programming for Big Sky Documentary Film Festival, which is in Montana. If you ever find yourself there, they have a great documentary festival as well, and for Aspen Shorts Fest. So that's me, that's why I am here. And we have all of these talented filmmakers up here on the stage with us this evening to chat about documentary filmmaking. And then we will open it up to questions from the audience as well. So this is a pretty intimate evening. We do have microphones that we can share, but I just wanted to start kind of going down the row if we can, if everybody wants to say who they are, what their film is, and if you know when your film is screening to let people know. You can start.
Okay, yeah, hi, my name is Jordan Campbell. I'm the director of Ukraine Under Fire. It's a film about the conflict in Ukraine. We're screening it tomorrow, I believe it's at 12:15, and then again Sunday, I think it's at 11:45. I could be wrong, but just around the noon time for both days. So.
My name is Ben Heathcote. I'm the director-producer for Coroner to the Stars. It's a feature doc about Dr. Thomas Noguchi, who performed the autopsies of Marilyn Monroe and Robert Kennedy and Sharon Tate and the Charles Manson family murder victims. And we screened last night at the headquarters, and we will be screening tomorrow, Saturday, at the Federated Church at 4:45.
Hey, I'm Bradley Bethel. I'm the director of Ranger of the North, and it screens in an hour. And tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Tonight it's at the outdoor, the park, and tomorrow it's 2 o'clock at the Little Theater.
My name is Andrew Gans. I'm the director of Voices, the Danny Gans story, which is about Danny Gans, who was an entertainer in Las Vegas for many years. He was the #1 act for over a decade, and he passed away very suddenly in 2009, and he was my dad. So I made this film to honor his life and share his story and get to know him a little bit better as an adult. My film screens tomorrow night at 6:40 at the Federated Church.
Hi, I am Evelyn Gregory. I am the director and co-producer with Kenny Lofton. The story of the Cleveland Buckeyes is called I Forgot to Tell You About, the story of the Cleveland Buckeyes, and it screens tonight at 7:15.
My name is Rika Pignitsky, and I'm the director and co-producer of Kaláka, from the Carpathians to the Caribbean. It's a musical road movie of a band who's been together for 55 years, and how they build a community. They're just really inspiring. They're like the Buena Vista Social Club, but Hungarian. That might help you. This is screening at the Big Hungarian Night, which is Saturday night at the Chagrin Valley Little Theater, and it's, I think, 7:30. And there's like wine and Hungarian food as well, so there you go.
My name is Stephen Burks, and I'm the director of Hiking Through Grief. We followed 6 widows and widowers for about 6 or 7 months as they formed this hiking group kind of by accident. It was very organic. They started with just a few people, and they are now over 50-some folks who are all widows and widowers who are hiking together, finding community and finding healing and rediscovering joy again. Oh, it screens the other night at the Little Theater, but it's going to screen tomorrow in the park at 2:45.
Wonderful.
Right.
Well, you all passed the test of knowing when your screenings are, so congratulations. Yeah, we all have to be our own marketers of our films, of course, as well. So thank you for that. If you haven't had a chance to see these films, please make sure you do before the festival's over. The first question that I am going to start with that is open to everybody. I'd love for everyone to share at least a little bit, but whoever feels eager to jump in, just go ahead and start. So obviously, every documentary has a story, and as you can see, this is a really diverse group of filmmakers and the stories that they've told, from stories about war zones and refugee camps to personal stories of grief. Once you get past what story you're going to tell, how as a documentary filmmaker do you determine what perspective you're telling it from? If everybody can kind of share a little bit about that, and also as a filmmaker, what responsibility you feel towards that community or person whose story you're telling. Those are big questions.
So my film is about a retired national park ranger who is inspired by his favorite novel to journey into the wilderness to search for hope in the face of climate change. And his favorite novel is The Lord of the Rings. And he's a friend of mine. We met because we're both Lord of the Rings nerds, and we met in an online Lord of the Rings class. And so for me, this was actually a pretty easy question to answer because I had a very particular aesthetic style that I wanted to go for, which is why I wanted to follow him through the wilderness and just be immersed with him. And I wanted the viewer to feel immersed with him. And so we followed him through the wilderness, and then afterward, he and I collaborated to write the narration as sort of an inner monologue of what he's experiencing through the journey. And so it's always his perspective, and he's the only person in the film. It's him in the wilderness. So my document, this film, this is my fifth or sixth film that I've worked on, and it was the first one in this kind of style, and so it's kind of a literary style. I kind of think of it as a literary documentary is what it is. But that made it really, that's why this question, for this film, for other films, this question would be a lot harder to answer, but for this one, it was a lot easier to answer.
I can make it harder for you.
Go ahead, sure, yeah.
At what point, was there a point at which your subject's voice was something that you took kind of artistic license for? Like, were they a part of it through the editing process?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because he and I collaborated, and the way we did that is I showed him like a sort of a rough cut of just the visuals, and then I kind of prompted him. I was like, here's what we want to go for in each of these scenes. If you remember, this is what we went through, and so just kind of free write in response to these scenes. And so he did that. He produced a whole lot of writing, and then I edited it down. And then there were times when I did write some of the lines, but I was constantly trying to get into his head to think through him. And then we would go back and forth and crafting the lines. And so it was really fun to work with him. I've never worked on a film like this, and so that was a really fun process. And I want to do more films like this. My full-time job is a high school English teacher. And so this was a way for me of combining my love of literature with documentary film.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go. This is a complicated answer, complicated question for me to answer. The point of view of the film is through me. You kind of follow me on my journey to tell my dad's life story, and through the process, I'm getting a chance to get to know him better as an adult. But I really struggled with the role of directing the film and being the son of the subject and also being on screen a lot of the time. That wasn't something I was very comfortable with, and that wasn't something that I initially had in mind when I started making the film. When I started, I really just wanted to honor my dad's life and tell his story, and then as I started the process, I really felt like I was experiencing a lot, and I was going through this emotional kind of turmoil of who my dad was and what had happened to him and how he passed away, and I felt like it would be worthwhile to include that in the film to share with people. And so I had to really battle all the different roles I was playing, and I had obviously a bias I had to try to tackle and manage, but I felt like my perspective is just trying to tell the truth and tell it as honestly as I can, being his son. But I also, aside from that, because he was an entertainer and he was so successful, I wanted to honor his legacy and his career. Through the film, I want you to feel like you're in the audience watching him perform. So I utilized his performance footage very strategically to help elevate and pinpoint or make the moments in the film, the beats that I choose to show footage with you more poignant and have more depth and layered meaning to it. So I think that was one of the more challenging things that we were trying to accomplish, and I think in the end it worked very well and allowed us to really bring a lot of life to the film and kind of help share our themes in a really beautiful way.
Sorry, I'm not a moderator, but I do want to ask you, my first two films are really, really personal, and I'm working on one now, also personal, but in between they weren't. And I have a fantastic story editor for all of those. You cannot make a film about yourself, I feel like, unless someone's out there saying, oh, too personal, oh, not personal enough. Did you have a story editor? Were you able to, because you said we, so I'm thinking you had a story editor.
Well, I say we because the people that I worked with were very important to me, and the editors specifically that I worked with played a crucial role in this. I didn't have a story editor? I didn't have a story editor necessarily, but I worked very closely with both of the women that edited this film. One is Kate Hackett, who's wonderful, and Jamie Conklin, and they really helped me navigate a lot of the emotional turmoil that I was in. It was very anxiety-inducing to make this film, but I ultimately I felt very confident in my decisions, and they supported me in those decisions, and they helped kind of steer me in my times of indecision. So yeah, I think that collaboration was very, very helpful for me.
So my film is about Dr. Thomas Noguchi, who became unwillingly or unwittingly the coroner to the stars because he was in the right time and place, and he was the chief medical examiner coroner of Los Angeles from the 60s through the 80s. And going into this project, I think I was drawn to the subject matter for the same reason that I think audiences might be drawn to see this film, because it deals with celebrity death and Hollywood and true crime and what have you. So I entered this project over 10 years ago, with a bit naive, thinking that, it was about these celebrity cases, or, are we going to uncover something new about them? But really, it became much deeper than that, and the perspective is that of Dr. Thomas Noguchi. And he was reluctant to even participate in this project because he had an adversarial relationship with the press. Ultimately he was fired because Hollywood elites and political folks thought that he was after his own spotlight, his own fame, and folks like Frank Sinatra thought that he was tarnishing the legacies of these stars and celebrities, and ultimately Noguchi was fired. So he was reluctant to work on any film because he thought that we were members of the press or of the media, and I had to convince him, no, I'm a filmmaker, this is different, I want to get to know you, I want to explore the story beyond the headlines of you, the coroner to the stars, and really get to know you as a person, and yeah, talking to his colleagues and his contemporaries, and then basically just following him all around the world, he saw that we weren't going away, and and I think we got to the root of like Dr. Noguchi, the person, and was able to tell his story from his perspective, even though he never had any editorial control or wanted any. But it was a journey in getting to know, it was a learning experience for both myself and I think the audience too, and him as well. You know, you spend so much time working with somebody that I think it became, though, a much deeper, much richer story than the headlines would lead you to believe, or even the celebrity cast, all of whom are dead because Dr. Noguchi was performing the autopsy. But you know, he really, it's his story, even though we have this cast of dead celebrities.
Was there a specific point in the process where you felt like you gained his trust as a reluctant subject?
Yeah, I do. During the process of the filmmaking, Dr. Noguchi's wife passed away, and he's 98 years old now. He's still alive and with us, and I have lunch with him every couple weeks. But after his wife passed away, he didn't tell me. He didn't tell so many other people, and I was at this convention with him, and that's how I learned about his death. We were in Portugal, and I was filming, and he was speaking to some people who were asking about his wife. Oh, how's your wife? And he's told them that she passed away, and everyone was like shocked to hear this. And it was the way that he quietly dealt with her grief in juxtaposition to the way that he publicly, throughout his career, had to be the speaker of the dead. That really became, for me, that's when I knew that that's what the film is about. It's this juxtaposition of personal grief and personal loss versus very public, outward expertise on the scientific facts for how somebody how somebody died. So I think being there for that journey of his grief, even though he was reluctant to speak about it, I think I really earned his trust through that process.
Thank you so much. I'm going to head down to this end. And actually, Reka, if you want to start, I'd love to hear both Reka and Jordan, your perspectives from kind of the international lens of how you deal with cultural sensitivities when you're filming internationally. You want to talk about that, Reka?
Yeah, I mean, just about we'll go back to the perspective for a second. I think it's really important that, people think that we make documentaries and we are doing a sort of nonfiction, objective storytelling, and I have to admit that even though you try hard to tell a story about someone else, your perspective creeps in. There's no way it doesn't creep in. And in my case, I'm a Hungarian American, and I made a film about a very famous Hungarian band who did not want to make this film with anyone else. They wanted me because I was an outsider, and I actually ended up having a perspective to it, which was that this band is important to more than just Hungary. It's important to all the other countries that they've gone to as well. So I put a kind of an international spin on it, and I made the Hungarian diaspora a big part of this film. And I remember when the band, who did not tell me anything, they didn't tell me what to do. They didn't say, you have to do, it's 55 years of them playing 1,300 songs, I don't know how many million concerts. And they didn't say, oh, you have to do this, you have to focus on that. So they let me do it, and then they saw the film when it was done, and they said, this is so amazing that we don't think if a Hungarian would have made this film, it would be the same. And I was kind of like, is that a compliment? Is that not okay? And then it turned out it was okay. They really loved it, but it was a little sketchy for a second there. But they said that, yeah, Hungarian wouldn't have thought that there's Hungarians who live outside the borders. And so that's my perspective on it. I put that spin on it. It was hard not to insert myself in the film because I love doing that. That's always hard for a director also, but you can sort of insert yourself from behind the scenes, and I think everyone does it. I don't think anyone doesn't do that. I think every director has a direction, a feeling that they want to give to their story. Then they want to do their subject justice, but you can't. You're a director because you have some sort of perspective, I think. Maybe there are some neutral people out there, it's not me.
No, I want to assert even stronger that I think we should. I think a documentary film is a work of art. And so I think the challenge is to represent the subject faithfully, but also represent our own perspective. accurately. Like it is our vision that is guiding the film, and so, you know, there are documentaries that are journalistic and strive to adhere to journalistic standards, but there's also documentary that is art, you know, and that's what I'm most interested in. But there's nothing wrong with journalism, you know, and maybe some of you all are doing.
I'm actually a journalist, so I started,
Right.
I worked for the Associated Press Television for 12 years, and I covered international news stories. And when I first started making films, my friend out there, Juji, wave over there, she's Hungarian. I would be doing things, and she'd say, "Oh, that's very magazine. That's very journalist." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm just doing." Anyway, it is different, and I went from being a journalist to trying to tell larger stories, and it was quite an adventure getting there. I have to say, to breathe every now and then. Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay.
That's probably a good place for me to hop into it, yeah. So yeah, my film, Ukraine Under Fire, I tumbled into filmmaking as a journalist, you know, years ago, but this particular project is, you know, I wish it was as simple as following one person through. It's a really complicated story, and I've got a lot of voices of resilience in there, and then there is a clear lead through line woman named Olga Budko, who's the main person we follow. But I went to Ukraine twice as a journalist covering the conflict and filming a little bit, and then I went back and filmed 2 more times, actually with the intention of making a film. So from the perspective of the filmmaker, yeah, I agree with you that you have to kind of like really lean in and be true to what you see happening on the ground, and then kind of adhere to some of the journalistic standards of, you know, what you want to, you know, communicate. But yeah, we have a lot of voices in there. They're about 2 minutes each, and we were probably going to go for a feature at one point, but then one of the main character that we were also kind of, with Kaláka, equal subject, he was killed before we picture locked. And I was like, you know, I was devastated, and I think it really just made the decision for me to make it a 40-minute film instead of going like 50 plus. So, so from that perspective, yeah, and these were friends of mine, some of them initially. So when the war began, when Russia first invaded in 2022, I was on a WhatsApp chat with one of the main characters, one of the characters, and she said, I said, "Are you going to leave?" You know, and she said, "No, I'm staying, and we're building Molotov cocktails in my basement." And they're just everyday people. And so at that point, I really sort of had this like moral imperative to cover the story, and these were friends of mine, and I thought, you know, she might get killed, and so there was a huge personal connection. But then I think as the journey went on, you know, I went 2 trips to the Zero Line area, and I was there for quite a while, and then I came back and decided I had to actually make the film. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, without getting into it, it's a lot of story architecture in our project that came as we went and sort of unfolded. And then losing our other subject, Peter Fouché was the combat medic, and I was embedded with him twice on the Zero Line area, and he was killed by multiple drones. So that's how the whole thing kind of wrapped up. But the sort of like, the story is really about war and resilience. And so it's resilience and the voices of resilience. And so we have this ensemble, and it works pretty well. And then we leave you with a lot of threads to pull on, whether it's genocide or child deportation. So it's issues driven as well. So there's a lot packed into it, but I worked with my editor a lot, and I did include myself, which was a decision we had to make, because you're telling a lot of the story yourself, and you're shooting it yourself, and then you have a main character like Olga, who we're following. And she gives us kind of the perspective of the Ukrainian side of it. So I know it's a lot, but yeah. So you'll have to see the film to get the full impact of it all.
Has Olga seen it?
Oh yeah, I work with Olga all the time. We did our world premiere in Washington D.C. Our impact producer, who's officially our impact producer now, is Jonathan Price over here. And we worked together in Washington, and we opened up with remarks from the ambassador, and we did it at the Lisner Auditorium. It was a good space to sort of do that. So.
We still need to proceed in Evan, yeah.
So I guess guess I'll speak to like the hard and the, I guess maybe the more easier part of deciding the perspective. The piece I did was it's from the 1940s, so there was very little archives, very little footage, and none of the players were living. So there was a lot of reaching out to family members. Some family members agreed, some didn't. And so a lot of the storytelling came from the historians, and they're willing to give their information and the knowledge that they had from researching the team. And I guess what was easy is that, like, I'm from Cleveland. I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan, and we all know that we need all the championships we can get. So from that perspective, it was easy to tell it from the fans' standpoint, being the Cleveland fan, sports fan. But yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Angelina, our producer over here, invited me out to lunch, and she says, I have a friend who is hiking. She's a widow, and this remarkable thing is happening, and the group is growing, and it's really working. You know, I think the average age of a widower or widow in America right now is 59. So these were people who didn't want to sit in church basements and, you know, have that very kind of static, depressing kind of experience. They wanted to be out. They wanted to find their way in the world. So she asked me to do this, and I said yes. She knew that my wife at the time had stage 4 cancer. So the perspective was, these people have a lot to tell me, and I'm going to be doing this movie about people in a very, not the kind of club you want to join, but a club that I was probably going to be in, you know. So I really wanted to give them an opportunity to share their truth about, you know, grief, and how they were grieving, and how they were getting through the day. And the one thing I said to Angelina, I said, it has to be beautiful. The film has to be beautiful. And so we got a really good director of photography, Henry Orlip, and you know, he used anamorphic lenses, and he just went all out. And we had great aerial shots as well. And so the film is beautiful because life is beautiful, and what these people are doing is beautiful as well. So the perspective was one of, it's very personal, but yet we're all going to experience grief at some level, at some point in our lives. And my wife passed away a couple months ago, and Ariane, she dedicated the screening the other night to her memory, and I was so appreciative of that. She didn't get to see the premiere, obviously, but she did get to see one of the, you know, rough cuts. And so I think, now I've lost my train of thought. So I was saying that it's been the perspective has been one of, I wanted to learn, now I'm in this club, and the things that these people said come to me in just the right time. And so I am able to get through my days now, and remembering things that they've said. And one of the things that they said was, they have a rule, never say no. If somebody asks you to do something, you say yes. And so after a couple of days, in the weeks after my wife passed, it just sneaks up on you. You begin to isolate. And so I was isolating, and I had 3 sons, all adults. They came home and they were living at the house, and they kept trying to get me to do things. And I remembered, never say no, always say yes. And so I'm trying to say yes to as many things as I can. So that's my perspective. And but I think it is a beautiful film. I hope everybody gets to see it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
And it
much.
was a beautiful film.
We were very grateful you said yes to making the film and sharing it with everyone too. So, yeah, thank you. Moving on to what might be a little bit more of a challenging question for some, so feel free to add in if you'd like. With advancements in technology, changing landscape of distribution, especially in the documentary field, at this point as filmmakers, as the artists themselves, what are you actually most excited about for the future of documentary filmmaking? The flip side of that, what are you most worried about that will threaten your art?
And there's the big elephant in the room called AI.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
I write my scripts with AI, so there you go.
Okay.
No, I don't, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, great, no. Actually, though, I did get into a pitching forum because someone told me that there's a pitch in Zagreb, I live in Budapest, and I'm working on a series on housing estates around the world, totally different subject. And I'd been wanting to do this for a long time, and they said, hey, quick, the deadline's like the day after tomorrow. And it was in my drawer, and I took it out, and I knew what I wanted to do, but I just hadn't like really researched it. I cranked that thing out in a day, and I got into the pitch, and then I won. So it does help us, but you have to have your own idea, obviously. You have to have an idea in there somewhere.
Right.
But so AI is rough, and I always tell my editor, you're toast, because that's the next thing to go, is the editing. And then he says, no, 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 you still need me. So we do talk about this a lot. But I think that's probably for us who are writing something, anything, our pitches, our synopsis, our log line, it's way faster, so it's
Right.
helpful. It is
Yeah,
helpful.
I should have
I don't-
prefaced this question by
Yeah.
saying this is a safe space.
What?
And
What's
it's
wrong
a
with that? I don't feel like
right.
that's
I think it's a
all
really
ChatGPT.
interesting and important conversation for all of us to keep having
Yeah.
through, as it evolves.
I'll admit it. I use ChatGPT. There you go. In two languages.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point. And that's really why I'm asking. Like, how is it helping filmmakers who are strapped and usually somebody wearing many, many hats within their art form? How can it be helpful? I welcome your concerns as well, but I think it's really important to kind of simplify.
Oh, the one thing, the concern, sorry, is that you have to, okay, probably you're way more experienced than me than this, but you have to put it on private, just because you don't want your IP out there. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, let's run the grammar spelling through here, whatever. And then my friends just slammed me and they said, try to put that thing on private or else you're gonna be in the data search engine with your great idea. So there's that. So you have to go private or pay for it, but that was a concern that your ideas will, that's the only fear I have with it, that I have some stuff out there that I probably didn't want to put out there, yeah.
I'm hopeful for, especially as a documentarian and for the future of documentaries. I think we are very often telling human stories, and I think you need humans to tell these human stories. And certainly there are ways that we can all benefit from AI. I was lucky to have a screening of Coroner to the Stars in Austria, and then which I didn't get to go to, but then recently in Japan. And one of the needs for these screenings was to have the film subtitled in both German and Japanese. And I was able to utilize AI by plugging in an SRT file, that's like a captioning file, and then within, usually like whenever I've used AI for things, you get something like pretty instantly, but it took like 30 minutes to process, I think it was like 1,600 different, title pages with captions. But I was able to get at least a rough draft of the captions in both German and in Japanese, and then I worked with, a German speaker and someone who spoke Japanese to clean it up. Obviously, like, this comes at a job loss to somebody who has made a career making titles and subtitles for films. But for me, as an independent filmmaker, this was a huge help and a way to share the story internationally that would have been posed certainly financial challenges without AI.
I think with me, like this is my first film, and trying to search archives and find footage that would fit on the timeline. I was also an editor. It helped me tremendously to be able to tell a story and provide visuals versus just people talking about a history story. And I'm very hopeful for it. There's like many stories that are forgotten like these that I think AI could help bring to life some of the stories that we won't get visuals for or ever be able to see without it.
You asked about challenges. The AI part I said was positive, but there's a challenge, and it has to do with funding. I actually make films now in Europe, and there's way more funding in Europe, so most of my films are funded more easily that way. The US seems to be a little bit rough in terms of finding funding for your films, and I've met a lot of filmmakers here who are just self-funding and just doing it next to their day job. And it should be sustainable. We should be able to make films that have this be our profession. And I think that's really hard. And you say, oh no, but there's so much content, that we have the streamers, and there's just so much space to put things up. And I went to a really big series conference in Lille in France this year. It's called Series Mania. And there was this whole documentary section. By the way, they don't call it documentary because that's embarrassing. They call it unscripted. And that space is true crime, biopic, and what's the third one? It's there's some third category. Cooking show, I don't know, it's something. It's close to reality. So the kind of creative documentaries, those aren't being like sought after and filling the content space. So that's what's hard, is that documentary is viewed, I think, in those three levels. And I think those are good films as well, but there's a lot of creative documentaries that are, it's kind of just hard to get funding. And I think it's always been hard to get funding, and now it's, there's all sorts of funding. That was public funding, which is, of course, being, withdrawn here. So that's a hard one. I don't know how everyone else gets funded, but that's a full-time job also, is roping people in to give you money. And just sell it to Netflix. That's not how that works.
Right. Yeah, we're going to take questions from the audience in just a minute, but I want to add to that, Rika, and that sort of the other side of that is funding is challenging, and then obviously the distribution is increasingly difficult. Can anyone on this panel, if you feel inclined to share how film festivals still play a role in that for independent filmmakers? Is it just as important as it's ever been as part of the kind of ecosystem to get your film out there and in front of people? Do you see that changing in the future? If you guys want to share?
I can say something. Yeah, I would just say that from my perspective, I almost wished I'd gone to pitching festivals and pitch opportunities and did a little bit of pre-screening of our film. We were in a rush trying to make a film in the middle of a conflict. It's really difficult, so we're trying to rush things without killing ourselves. But it's great. I think it's still really a really valuable space to be in the film festival run, because you get to show it to a lot of different people. You get a lot of different feedback. You see things, watching the audience watch your film, of course, and it's a different energy. And then I think for distribution, it helped. We screened our film in Colorado, and it looks like we may have a chance with Rocky Mountain PBS now. It's like we're this close. So, and then that could advance. So that's just my perspective. And yeah, I'm sure you've got a lot of things that people would want to say.
I think for distribution, it is really hard. I feel like there's a lot more films being made, or it feels like a lot more films are being made, and distribution companies are buying films less. They're acquiring films, but there's no minimum guarantees given. So you're basically given zero money up front, and your performance based on TVOD and SVOD and all that stuff. And this is the first film I've directed. I was a producer I produced 10 or 12 narrative features, so this is my first documentary. And all the Hollywood accounting horror stories are very true, unfortunately. So you really run into a lot of issues with reporting and lack of reporting. So that's that's definitely something that I worry about constantly when I'm approached by distributors for the film. We've received a handful of offers and haven't taken any yet, but I'm hoping that the festival circuit is going to be really helpful in that. And I do believe that there are really good companies out there and trustworthy companies who really want to make your film shine and focus on it. But there are, unfortunately, a ton of other companies that just kind of acquire a ton of films and just throw everything at the market at once with nothing specifically geared towards your film. It's just, here's our movies, we'll see which ones get watched more, and that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Hopefully we get one out of every 20 that really hits it big, and that's how we make our money. So I hope that there are more companies that come up that really focus on customized, curated, targeted marketing and publicity for their films that really kind of take pride in their library.
All right, I think we're gonna check in and see if we have any questions from anyone in the audience. Please feel free to go ahead.
For the men, is the requirement you must have facial hair to be
Apparently on this panel it is.
Yes.
To women, you're on your first film, you're the ultimate pro. How many times did you quit and file it away and just say, I'm done, and then come back and come back and come back?
Actually, it's a very interesting question, and although it sounds a little negative, Nancy, but I think I'm actually going to run a panel next month that I invented called negative case studies. So when do you let a film go? When are we like, we've worked so much on it, we've spent so much money on it, and we have to let it go because it's not going to work. And how many times I have lots of films in the drawer, and I also have things that I really want to make, and I just can't yet. One of them has to do with grief, which I'd like to talk to you about. But yeah, I mean, it's just not sustainable. That's the problem, really. I mean, I think that for me, this is all that I do now because I work on other people's films also, and I do subtitling. I actually now only check subtitles for people in English, so don't do the, chit chat does the rest. But so yeah, you have to do other things. You have to speak, you have to teach, it's not like you could just have one job as a documentary filmmaker. I think the producers more so if someone's just a producer and running a production company, they have a better chance. But it's, I think that it's not that I give up on films, it's just that things are not sustainable. And right now I'm making a personal film that I'm absolutely funding for the first portion until I figure out if someone's interested. You have to put in money up front, otherwise nobody's just going to take a piece of paper. They need visuals, so if I answered that.
So in making a film, it started, we were wearing masks during our first couple set of interviews, and it was right in the middle. And I did my last interview last November, so I probably tried to put 5 times in between then. I tried to get the president of the Negro League Baseball Museum. I didn't get him until 3 years later, so it was tough, it was difficult. And then came along Kenny Lofton, Major League Baseball player, you heard about the story, and it's just timing. It was right. This year is their anniversary of their championship. And so it was a big lesson for me to learn that, timing is very important, especially with documentary work. So.
Rika, I'm just thinking now how great it would be to do a whole series of unfinished films and just to be able to peek into all of your drawers of the ideas that you have and what a great series that would be. I'm going to check and see if there's any other questions from anyone. Yep, go ahead.
I'm just curious what happens to your films. Sometimes I think about a film that I never got to see it at this festival, and every once in a while I get lucky, it might have been a video or something like that. I don't know, search the internet for it. They're just gone. I know that you need to be able to make money, but do you guys ever just send links to people who want to watch it, or is there a way that I can just pay to watch a film on maybe, or something, I was just wondering, like, where do your films go?
This kind of goes into the distribution question. A lot of, the sad truth is that a lot of films don't get distribution offers. A lot more than you'd think. And those films, they either have to self-distribute, which costs more money, and a lot of filmmakers can't afford that. They just spent everything they possibly can on making the film. So they try to wait for distributors to come. They do the film festival circuits is really what, in my opinion, what the film festivals have kind of really helped independent filmmakers do is find distributors and help distributors connect with filmmakers. And sometimes it just doesn't connect, you don't get the offer, there's all sorts of factors that play into it. But for the films that don't get distribution, you can either upload it to like YouTube, you can keep it on Vimeo and just keep it public. I mean, those are the two that I know the most. You guys can kind of chime in with other opportunities, but that's pretty much it. I mean, if you found a film that you really loved at a festival and you can't find it in like Amazon, iTunes, Netflix, all that kind of stuff, like it probably just didn't get a deal. And if you remember the director's name, you could probably try to find him online and reach out to him and get a screener that way.
Yeah.
An offer to pay them.
Yeah. Yes. I'll add to that too. Having worked at film festivals before, that's always the question we would get is, people call and say, oh, I saw this film years ago and I loved it, I can't find it anywhere. It is a challenge because if there's not a great sort of archive system to keep track of all those films, they can disappear. But I think, and please tell me if this is correct, but I always would encourage attendees to really try to research about the film, just follow on social media, even if that's something that as a filmmaker you have the capacity to keep up on. If the film has a website, sometimes they'll have newsletters that you can add yourself to, and that way you can keep up with if the film gets distributed, if you're able to see it somewhere else. There's also sites like Just Watch or something like that now in the streaming world where they actually have a pretty vast collective of films that you can see everywhere that it might be available to, so you can look at places like that. But I think the best way is to stay engaged with the artists and the filmmakers themselves as much as you can, and like they said, pay them if you can, because it is their work. But yeah, it's a great question.
Let me add one more small thing you can do. Any films you see at a festival that you like, rate them on IMDb. It's a small thing, but it helps distributors look at IMDb ratings. So log in to if you have an Amazon account, you can log into your Amazon account to IMDb. Give the films you like a good rating, and it's a little thing that can help them.
And Letterboxd.
Yeah,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
And if it's, sometimes you might not be able to rate it, but you could add it to your watch list. You could do both. Just so much is unfortunately about triggering the algorithms in multiple ways, so.
But that's a really interesting point. I think being involved in the film festival through the homestay and through the rating of those amazing films, we need to know more about this.
Right.
Because I don't know anything about this. So will you educate us, because we want to support y'all. This is why we have Christmas in October. It's because of each of you. And we mean this from our hearts. You make this town come alive. Y'all's talent, your expertise, your passion, your beauty. Thank you. We want to give back to y'all too. Please educate us on this.
Well, yeah, I guess just to reiterate, you can find the film's website, sign up for the newsletters if there is one available. Like, follow on social media, like on or recommend on IMDb, rate on IMDb.
Are you familiar with IMDb?
Sorry, IMDb is the Internet Movie Database, and it's sort of like the Wikipedia for movies. I don't know if that's good, but yeah, it's a database of all the movies, and like I said, distributors look at it. So if a distributor sees that this film's playing festivals, it's got 1,000 ratings with an 8-point average, like, oh, that's interesting.
That would be excellent.
Yeah. That's why I'm gonna, at every one of my screenings, I'm gonna be asking people to rate on IMDb, you know.
That's awesome. I have another idea for you. If you're, I'm back to my favorite friend, ChatGPT. It really works. You just plug in and say, oh, I saw this film about 1956. It was a woman, she was from Hungary. It was about her dad, and it'll come up. So anyway, and then it'll show you where you can see it. You can further ask, where can I see this film? Where is it available? And that's kind of, I've just recently been doing that. That's kind of, because I miss films too. And also production companies, like if you can make a note that, like, let's just say my company's called 56 Films. Half of my films are on my website, so you can see them through there. And I just want to say one more note about distribution, that I distribute, you know, I'm in Hungary, which is Europe, as we might know, and it's, you know, there's distribution means different things. It can mean that you're selling it to television, or that television has bought it and there it goes, or that it's going to be streaming, or that you're going to distribute it yourself, and it's, frankly, for me, in a way, the way the funding works in a lot of European countries, especially in Hungary, that you're funded for your film sort of up front. So all that legwork, like I'm a content producer, so I make films. I'm a director, but I also kind of produce. And I get the money for my film, I got the grant, I'm doing it, and then I'm like on my next film, and the distribution process of like walking your film and getting it sold for peanuts, I might add, all the work that I'm doing, and then I'm selling it for peanuts. I funnel it to television, and 1 million people see it, and then they pay for it to show it again. And so I'm actually making a documentary, but it'll show up on one of the 5 huge stations in Hungary. And then it's really tiring to try to distribute your film. And it's especially tiring when you've already finished it. So there's a book called When I Wake Up Screening. Have you ever heard about that book? Hilarious book. It's about how do not start distributing your film when it's done. It's way too late. So, you know, now when we start a process, you're already talking to the social impact producer, you're already talking to someone who might be interested in distribution, even before you even like put anything together. So you definitely need to start that in the beginning. I'll just tell you down there, because I know what that's like, that you're in the middle of making your film and you're like, who the hell cares about distribution? Someone needs to care about it, or you're gonna just basically, yeah, so that's, and it's different levels now, and then there's definitely online, and everyone rips your film and steals it anyway, so you're not really making a shit ton of money, after it's done. At least that's the European experience. I might be totally wrong about the US because I've not distributed anything here. I've been to festivals, but I've not. Can you make money on your documentary? Just be totally, brutally honest.
No.
Cash in hand.
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, has
But I'm
anyone
determined it's
made
gonna happen.
money on a documentary in the United States? Come on, guys. Let's
I'll
go
tell
hands
you
in the air.
soon.
Yeah, okay, that's what.
I want to add in a couple things that I think that'd be interesting because of the question she had, but I've been on a couple of panels. I've studied a couple of panels that I was watching like a year and a half ago when I was still in the weeds. And this is a kind of recurring theme. It's just documentary is brutal, it's hard, it's messy, it's make it up as you go half the time, even with the greatest intentions. One gem of wisdom I've always been given, and I'm starting to get that now, is before you even start your project, have your distribution strategy set up and ready to go. With ours, it's been we got pretty lucky, connecting with PBS. But again, there's no money in this. It's just for the greater good. It's sort of altruistic, and it's to get millions of eyeballs. But yeah, another thing I was going to say is that most films do not get made. And so sometimes film festivals, if you get just a decent film festival run and you're a small narrative or a short doc or whatever your film is, it may not get picked up and it gets shelved, but it had some film festival run, and that feels really great for the director or the producer or the team, but it happens a lot. And I think it's a lot of the things that you don't see that are in the drawers of a lot of filmmakers and directors that is powerful. So.
I love the ripple effect, though, of film festivals in particular, where you're connecting with other filmmakers. Maybe you get inspired, or you work together on a future project. It all, is building steps, I think, but it's a lot of steps for sure. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for sharing your films with us, sharing your time here today with us, being a part of the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival. I want to thank you all for being here today too, supporting the film festival. Please do that for the rest of the festival and support documentary films in every way that you possibly can. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.